What's up, everybody? Thanks so much for tuning into our podcast, Bikini Bytes, with Pinky and Karla. I will hand it off to Pinky real quick so she can introduce herself. Pinky, you want to get us started?
Hey guys, my name is Pinky. I'm a nurse practitioner and I have been bodybuilding for 3 years now. I did one show last year and I compete in the bikini division.
Awesome. And I'm Karla, so I'm a pharmaceutical scientist, and I actually just started bodybuilding last year. And originally, I set out to do one NPC competition at the end of the year, and I ended up doing three just because I kind of fell in love with the whole process. So we're here to just kind of share our experiences, but then also our learnings throughout our journey. So with that, the topic for today is going to be getting consistent with your training program. And it's very easy to kind of get a little bit muddled as to where to even begin. But I think a good starting point is always to first figure out what are your barriers.
Yeah, so I think really making sure that you can schedule your fitness or your workouts at a time when it is conducive for you. You know, your work schedule is important, so you have to work around that. You may have responsibilities such as like kids or activities for the kids that you may have to also balance. So all these things will come into play. And also, when is the time that is most productive for you and you have the most energy? You know, for me, if I can, early morning is the most productive time for me. So that would be a good time before work if I can to go get my workouts done. Sometimes I can't, and then I have to fit it in, after in the evening. But those are always a little bit more difficult, and I do have to convince myself a lot more to get myself to the gym at that time.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing with barriers too is that oftentimes it could be like we kind of want an easy solution, but life is ever changing, right? And so you kind of have to be a little bit more flexible or fluid with what might be coming up with life. So for me, for example, I usually try to work out actually after work, but given different life circumstances or in my particular field of work, experiments can either be shorter or longer during certain points of our projects. And so I can't really necessarily keep as consistent of a workout schedule as I would like. And so for me, I have to kind of find alternative solutions to getting my workout in. If I can work from home and I'm busy, then I can do a workout real quick during lunch. Or if there is a gym nearby my work, sometimes I'll try to squeeze in my workouts in between experiments. So really kind of trying to find a way to be fluid with whatever barriers you have is going to be the biggest thing. Like, it's hard to be rigid in your approach and trying to figure out solutions for these types of issues, but that's, I think, one of the greatest challenges about, okay, now you've kind of identified what your barriers are, like what is it going to take to actually be able to overcome them?
Correct. I completely agree. Also, a lot of this has to do with planning. I think you have to really plan ahead somehow. You know, sometimes, for example, depending on what kind of meetings and events you have scheduled, just kind of having it penciled in your calendar that, this is the time I can probably fit like 40 minutes, or even if you have to break up your workout to get it done. I definitely think that's very important. Also, like when you're doing your nutrition, making sure that you can meal prep ahead of time. That way you're not stressed and eating whatever, comes your way when you're tired and busy, I think will help as well.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up the whole process of like setting up a meeting because you know, in our jobs, and if we have children, for example, if your kids have like soccer practice after work, like you'll always find a way to make something work because that's what's expected of you or that's your own responsibility. But, we all kind of have responsibilities that we should set for ourselves because if you have kids or pets or even just a boss that relies heavily on your work, like you wouldn't necessarily neglect those people, or like if you have pets like those dogs or cats or whatever it is that is a big part of your life. So why would you, I guess, neglect yourself? And so I think it's important to really be able to kind of set up a recurring meeting for yourself. Like if you have a Google Calendar or an Apple Calendar, maybe you'll like using a daily planner, for example, to block off some time in your life to be like, okay, at this particular time, this is when I'm going to work out and I can't cancel this. Like maybe I'll have to move it around, but it's something that I have to keep on here and I'll have to make sure it fits somewhere in my day.
Yeah, you definitely have to make it a priority in your life. And also maybe having an accountability partner, whether that's your friend, your, colleague, or your husband or whoever, that may help you as well. But definitely, once you commit, you have to make that time. Like you wouldn't make time to get your if you're in school, you would make that time to get your report done for school, right? Or there's
Yeah.
deadlines, right? And if you're at work, you have to get your documentation or whatever other people are relying on, your projects done on time. Same thing, like it's a commitment to yourself that you have to get your workout done. And I think I read a quote or something somewhere that like honestly working out is like 4% of your day, like an hour a day is 4% of your day. I'm not sure if it's 100% correct, but I read that somewhere. So if you think about all the things that we fit in, we definitely can fit in the workout as well.
Yeah, definitely. Or I know there are people that, say, for example, you're doing like cardio on a treadmill or a spin bike. You just pop your phone on and then you like put on some Netflix or some YouTube or something that you find interesting. It's something you would essentially just be like watching while you're sitting on the couch, but you just happen to still be working towards your fitness goal in some kind of way. You're
Yeah.
going to be breaking a sweat, but you're still also able to watch whatever your favorite TV show is. So even trying to find like those types of tweaks or like hacks, I guess you could call them, is something that is going to help you move towards your goal.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some people, I can't do this, but I've seen some people be reading, or even like typing on, I'm not like that talented, but yeah, if you can do that, you can definitely multitask.
Yeah, and I guess along those lines too, something as simple as, watching TV, but while on a treadmill, it's really a small step towards the right direction. So if you have, say, mini goals or mini timelines for yourself, I think it makes it a lot easier to really go towards what you want because say you have like an end goal, but it just seems so overwhelming because you don't even know where to start. Like having a small habit that you want to work towards is really going to help with just getting to your destination. It's all the small steps in between that really get you to that end point or end goal that you're going towards. And so, when it comes to becoming consistent with a training program, for example, you don't have to hammer it out like do 6 days a week, 2-a-day workouts, and making sure that you're only eating tilapia and rice and only doing this specifically to the point that you're burnt out, you're overwhelmed, like it's not even an enjoyable process anymore. So the biggest thing is, baby steps, especially if you're really just starting out. For example, for me, I actually haven't really been in the whole fitness space for very long. So when I first started out, this was about 2 years ago. So before I had even known anything about bodybuilding, I was really just trying to lose like 20 pounds because I got a little bit, you know, lackluster in terms of my motivation workout during the pandemic, but then I knew that I had to scale it back a little bit and kind of find a good exercise regimen that worked for me. And so what I did was I started off with 15, 20-minute spin bike rides at home, something that I can very easily squeeze in during my lunch break if I was working from home, or even just trying to hit a certain step goal. And look at me now, I'm kind of doing all of these other active hobbies that I would have never even guessed that I would be doing like 2 years ago because I never really saw myself as an athlete or somebody who was into fitness. Honestly, I was more like that nerdy artist from my childhood. But it's those types of things, those small little, pushes that kind of take you in the right direction. Have you ever kind of encountered something like that for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think it's all about small steps, and just being consistent every day. And then what happens is those small steps become a part of your routine, they become part of your life, and they become a habit. And then when that happens, you're not thinking about these things anymore. They're just something that you're gonna get done, because that's what you do every day. They don't feel like something out of the norm or a struggle. So that all just takes time. You can't go extreme from one lifestyle to another lifestyle. You have to build up and make small changes. So I completely agree with that. Yeah, and as you progress, you start to look into other things. When I first started the gym, I was taking a lot of classes. I was just trying to like get abs, just a little bit of tone. And as things progressed, I started lifting, I started enjoying that. And then things progressed to like me competing, which I never thought like 3 years ago that I would do. So
Yeah, that's a huge thing, right? Is like really just finding something that you resonate with. I think, it's very often, and even for myself personally, when I was thinking about, oh, how am I going to start getting fit? There are so many different avenues that you can work towards. And I think the most common is like, oh, I see that people work out in a gym, so maybe I can try it. But say for example for lifestyle, people who don't necessarily want to ever hop on stage, they just want to look a certain kind of way or feel good, or maybe they have a weight loss goal that they really want to strive towards. You don't necessarily have to do what other people on Instagram or what other social media platform you're in. um, there are other things that you might enjoy that might not involve lifting. Maybe you like yoga, maybe you like Zumba, maybe you like distance running, and it's really just kind of a matter of finding something that you could fall in love with. If it comes to setting a goal but then being absolutely miserable reaching that goal, you're going to regress. You're going to go back to the same habits because you didn't enjoy the process that it took to get you to your destination. And so there isn't a single way to get fit or to have a training program. Not everybody has to do things the same way. Maybe you are really into snowboarding and you happen to live by the mountains, or something along those lines. I think if you prioritize finding something that you enjoy a lot and can incorporate into your lifestyle, you're not going to feel as burdened by the idea that you have to do this a lot more moving forward.
yeah, no, I agree. And I think with that comes a sense of finding what is your ultimate goal. Because you need to know where you want to reach. What is your goal for fitness, and then finding things that kind of work within your lifestyle and kind of will get you there. Because then you'll get that end reward and you'll feel good. So for everybody has a different goal. Some people just want to have more mobility. Some people want to lose a few pounds. Some people want to build muscle. Some people want to be more functional. So there's a lot of different goals that people are trying to achieve. Some people just want to be healthy. That's it. Just,
Mhm.
have some movement in their life. So depending on your goal and then structuring the program based on that, and that's something you enjoy, and then getting the reward at the end, I think will push you towards remaining consistent and staying in line with what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. Something that I've seen, working with personal training clients is that your people's goals shift over time too. So oftentimes I encounter people that want to do something with regards to fitness because they want to look better, they want to look toned, kind of like going after that beach body look. But once they get started, they realize that there are so many other benefits that come from having an active lifestyle or having a certain type of nutrition plan that you follow. And it's kind of exciting to see because people will start to realize that they enjoy either running or lifting, whatever it is that is on their program, for reasons other than aesthetics. So there'll be people that might be, oh my gosh, I feel like in terms of my energy levels or how I feel mentally, like what my mood is on a regular basis has changed dramatically, or I don't have pain in my lower back. And now I feel like I'm more able to go out and go on longer hikes or do something like play with my children for a longer period of time. So having a goal is good, but you might find that your goals might shift over time as well. And that's totally okay too. There's so many other reasons other than appearance or what have you, like gaining muscle or losing weight that you're going to find benefit from, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why it's like a fitness journey for every buddy, because you may start off thinking one thing and end up somewhere else. And, as you evolve um, through exercise, through your mindset, and you start doing things that you thought you couldn't do at one point, you start losing weight. Now you have more energy, you can do other things, you advance more in exercising and different areas of your life, your mindset changes and you may want to do different things that you never thought were possible for you before.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever kind of encountered something or a situation for yourself where you might have thought that you wanted to do something and then it ended up segueing to something else for the better?
I mean, I feel like my fitness journey has really helped my mindset. I definitely feel like I'm a different person mentally than I was, 3 years ago. I definitely feel like I'm much more disciplined, and that, I have much more of a positive mindset overall. Um, so I think it's helped me in that aspect.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I
How about
totally agree
you?
with that. Yeah, that's the biggest thing too. I think for me, I'm the kind of person that always liked being really busy. But, after I graduated from college, finished my master's and everything, I found that I had more time to myself and I wasn't necessarily sure what to really like expend my energy on. And so I felt a little bit lost. And really, especially when I found bodybuilding, I felt like I had a much greater sense of direction. And I kind of love the fact that it takes up so much of my life, honestly, because it's something that I felt like I needed. And I didn't realize that I needed it until I found it. And really, it was something that I stumbled across originally because I was trying to lose weight, and then I kind of fell in love with the process of, like, tracking my food and tracking my calories and also training without really understanding that this was a sport to begin with. And so, yeah, like, everybody's fitness journey is going to take you in different directions that you would have never guessed, and so, that's kind of the fun aspect of it. And we all want to be consistent, but sometimes the journey is a little bit inconsistent. It's a little bit, unpredictable at the same time. But if you just kind of go with the flow too, you'd be surprised where it's going to take you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that's what I like about this lifestyle is too, like it's like the routine and the consistency and knowing ahead of time, like I need to meal prep, I need to like, but it takes time. It takes time. You don't
Yeah,
get there overnight.
yeah,
So
definitely. So I guess back to kind of the subject of consistency. And so this, doesn't necessarily apply to just competitors, but something that I think that'll help keep people like in line with whatever it is that they're aiming towards is that it would help to find a metric to track your progress. It doesn't have to necessarily be a scale weight. It doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, I'm competing for this particular show. Like, it can be like micro goals, kind of what we talked about before. Like, what is it that we want to track, basically? Like, are you getting stronger in your lifts? Are you able to run further with a lower heart rate? Do you feel better overall? I think that's something that is important, and it's very easy to also maybe slip on tracking progress when you don't have as much accountability. And some people might require an accountability partner more than others. Some people are very self-motivated and they'll, write in their journal specifically every single week at every single time, that same time every week, what type of metric they're looking at. But what do you think is something that is useful to you when it comes to tracking your progress or having like a method of accountability?
So I think like I mean I always have worked with coaches, but regardless if you work with a coach or not, I do think like weekly progress pictures are so crucial. Because when you look back, like sometimes you look at yourself every day and you may not see the changes. And that happens to me a lot of times too, where I keep looking and I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm doing anything different. You know, my I'm not seeing the changes I'm supposed to see. But when you look at your pictures back and reflect on in them in a few weeks or a few months, you definitely can have that objective um, information in front of your eyes. And I mean, obviously, the weights can also be tracked, but you know, again, I don't think you should rely on weights too much in terms of your scale weight because, you know, that's just a number. It can be you can look at it in context of everything, but not harp on it and then be upset that, oh, you gained a pound here or etc.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, you know, coaches might not always necessarily be budget friendly for everyone. And especially if you're starting out in your fitness journey, it's very easy to kind of get overwhelmed with what types of resources are out there. And so, a couple different, like, I think maybe if you're interested, we can kind of share different apps or different like resources that we had found throughout our personal fitness journey. Like, what have we found to be useful for, you know, tracking progress or keeping ourselves accountable. For me, the first thing that I was introduced to, and probably a lot of people are already very familiar with, is my Fitness Pal. Not necessarily just even for food tracking, but before I had also used it to track weight over time, and you can also input progress photos. These are all things that you can do for free within the app. You don't necessarily need like a premium subscription for it. But something that I've also learned recently, and I really like the user interface for this particular app, is called Trainerize. And so if you know you happen to be somebody who does online coaching, or whether you're the coach or a client of a coach that uses Trainerize, this is a very popular tool where you have all of the access to different ways to track your progress. So you can actually make your own account as a coach. So, you know, air quotes, coach, through the Trainerize website. And you can set yourself up as your own free client because every account you can have one free client. So once you set yourself up as your own free client, then you have this myriad of app features that you can use. You can, you know, put in your progress photos, your weight, your measurements. You can sync your MyFitnessPal to it, your steps. So there are different integrations that you can incorporate if you have like an Apple Watch, a Garmin watch, I think Fitbit as well, a couple other different options. But I like using that. It's a platform that I use for my coaching clients actually, but I use it for myself because it's just a really great way to have everything all in one spot. It'll make the different graphs over time if you want to look like 3 months, 6 months, 1 year of different measurements that you might have taken, whether it's, you know, like waist measurement, hip measurement, your weight. And then also you could do your side-by-side progress photos. So you could do that completely free as a person who just kind of wants to keep tabs on themselves. And, you know, you might not necessarily want to be working with a coach at that particular moment in your life, but it's something that can help keep you accountable to yourself. And you can also track a bunch of different things all at once. You can also input your workouts there too. I forgot to mention that, but that's another thing that you can keep tabs on, is like, how strong are you getting? How are you feeling? You can take all these different notes. So I'm a huge advocate about that app. Pinky, do you have any other ones that you have found to be
Yeah,
really
those are
useful?
actually the two that I use too. They're really good. I really like how you talked about measurements too. Those are very important in your tracking your progress. The waist measurements, hip measurements for females, that'll be very helpful. There are also like if you like hand like books, there are on Amazon Fit books that you can just buy, and they usually have like a grid format where they write the exercise, the reps, the sets, and what weight you're using. So there's also those options as well that I've used in the past. But yeah, I think the apps are better. Um,
Yeah, and I forgot to mention too, there are a couple other good free apps. Like, say for example, you're not training for aesthetics. Maybe you're training for a powerlifting meet, or maybe you're training for a bike race or something like Fitbod, Fitbod. That's a good free app where you can track your weight training, your sets, the weights that you've been using, and they have a pretty comprehensive library of different movements, so you don't have to worry about like manually inputting all the different things that you're doing. You can kind of select from their pre-made library, which I find really useful. For people who have more endurance-based goals, I mean, most of my fellow endurance people are probably already familiar with Strava, but another one that I like to use, because I actually personally like to mountain bike a lot, is Training Peaks. And so that integrates with a lot of different things, with Strava, with your different fitness watches. I'm pretty sure I also have it integrated to Trainerize. So that way I can kind of have everything just like all synced in a one little spot. And that's a good tool for like cardio based sports, because similar to Trainerize, where you can make like you'll be able to receive free graphs on your weight changes, whether it's weight gain, weight loss, or your measurements. Training Peaks will keep tabs on the intensity levels, how much fitter you're getting over your runs, your rides, whatever cardio type of activity you do, how many miles you've done, how fast you've done it, all that fun stuff. So I just wanted to plug in those two because they're also really good free options.
No, that's great information for everybody. So I'm glad you mentioned them. I have a question on the Trainer Rise app. I know my app, also what I like about that is it actually shows your workouts. Like if you put workouts, it has videos on how to do the exercises. Is that also possible for free clients?
Yeah, it absolutely is. So if
Oh,
you like, say you just Google something, what's really nice about this type of like modern day technology is like you could definitely learn a lot or get some good free insight on what types of programs you could follow on Google. Like, say you don't necessarily have the money yet to commit to a coach, or you're just getting started in weightlifting, for example, and you see like this article from, I don't know, bodybuilding.com, and it lists out all the different pieces of equipment or different types of movements that you want to do, but you don't necessarily know what it is. What's nice about Trainerize is the similar to Fitbod. So Fitbod actually also has this. So if you were to use either of the two apps, you will have access to the library of videos where you'll see somebody actually perform the movement. And so this can be a great tool for somebody who's very new to lifting. It's something that I use personally. It's useful because I used to have to YouTube, like search on YouTube, like what a movement was, and that's really time consuming. And there's a lot of variability in terms of the type of information you can get on YouTube. So having something that is regulated within the Trainerize brand is really nice, because you can feel confident that the types of information that they're sharing there are reliable or accurate. And so you can kind of try to emulate whatever movement it is that you see on those videos. So that's a really good point, Pinky, but it is also a feature that anybody can access for free if they set up themselves as their own client.
yeah, I think that's great because it's going to be very helpful. Sometimes even now I look up some exercises that I haven't done in a while or haven't actually, maybe used as much in my programming, to just have that reference point. So I think that's going to be very helpful, especially for people who are just starting, to be able to look at at a library and be able to, kind of understand the technique and form.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just so much information out there now, and it's very easy to kind of be misled to do one thing versus the other. And you'll get a lot of different influencers, for example, that'll have a certain movement, and then you'll get other coaches that'll like talk crap about it because the form doesn't make sense, or they came up with a new movement and it doesn't actually target anything. So the last thing that you would want as a beginner lifter, for example, is to be wasting your time trying to get better at things that don't even make sense, or that don't actually provide you with a benefit in the long run. So having something that you can trust is really critical.
Yeah, and with that, like I also want to say, as you progress, you're going to learn your body and know which exercises work for you, because not every exercise may work for you, or you may feel it in a certain area that you're trying to target. So that also, is something that as you progress, you'll start to figure out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a question for you, actually, and I think this is something that ties in really well with our topic of getting consistent with a training program is what do you do when you end up not being very motivated?
So I've gotten to the point where fitness has become a lifestyle. So that makes things a little bit easier, but also just getting to the gym. I think that's number one step, like not harping, not thinking so much about, oh, I need to go, I need to go, but just getting there. Because once you show up, sometimes you can just say, hey, I'm going to take it easy today. I'm not going to, be here too long. But once you start your first sets and you're there, I think that's the biggest battle. Um, then I think things got easier for you.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it's a good point that you mentioned where, oh, if you just drive yourself to the gym, that's going to be the hardest part.
Yeah,
Because when it comes to motivation, I mean, I can't say with certainty that I'm motivated all the time. Like
none
I
of us
definitely
are.
have,
Yeah,
I definitely have my days when
yeah,
I just don't even want to move.
exactly.
But the important thing is to just set yourself up for success. So, like you said, one way to do that is simply by taking yourself to the location you need to be at, whether it's the park where you need to go run or where you like whether you need to drive yourself to the gym. A couple other things unrelated to training but still related to overall health and wellness is nutrition. So for example, in our sport we hear a lot about meal prepping, and this can apply to for lifestyle athletes as well. So even if you're not necessarily prepping for a competition, setting yourself up for success would entail maybe making certain foods in bulk, or maybe stock certain foods that you need at home that are within kind of like what you want for yourself. So if you're trying to reduce sugars and like all of those delicious treats because you find yourself always wanting to munch on them in the evening, you can help eliminate those distractions a little bit by reducing the amount that you keep in your home. And so that's another thing that you could do, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to be as planned as you can. Even for workouts, going back to your other question, if you have dumbbells at home, maybe if you're exhausted, whatever, you can still do a little workout at home, like you mentioned earlier. So those are another thing to consider. But yeah, in terms of meals, making sure that things are made already ahead of time. That way you're never your fridge isn't empty with the things that you want to eat, because that's when I do notice that if I don't have something meal prepped, it's easier for me to be off plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing too with motivation is that you have a goal where you want to work out 5 times a week, but you're just not feeling it one of the week or one of the days of that week. Um, you could have two potential options. One, you make that your rest day and you adjust your remainder of the week so that you fit your workout sometime else. Because I do that a lot for myself. If I just feel mentally burnt out from work, even though I had planned to do a workout that day, I tell myself, you know what, I'm gonna be a lot less stressed if I just did this on Saturday. So, let's just make this the new game plan and then stick to it. Or alternatively, you might just be not feeling that great in general, but you don't always have to go 110% in order to be moving towards your goals. So I think something that I came across last year in particular was I used to think that I had to give it my all and go to failure every single workout that I did, which just made me burn out really quickly. And if you do that, it also kind of leads you up to potentially not even enjoying what you're doing. Like, even if you loved it, even if you love your hobby so much, you might find yourself hating it because you just feel like shit the entire time. So I've since kind of learned to scale things back a little bit and give myself a bit of grace that if I need a recovery day, I will take it. I'll just have to be mindful about other things. Maybe, I took an extra rest day, so I'll think about prioritizing my nutrition for this day to kind of keep myself in line with what I want to push myself towards. Or you could just have like a bit of, I guess, a deload, you could say. Just give it whatever effort that you can give. Like, maybe you're feeling 40%, but if you give 40% and you're at 40%, you're giving 100% of yourself that day. So you might not be getting PRs on your deadlifts or your squats or whatever, but you tried and you made a little extra step to get to what you needed to do. So not every session at the gym you have to go ham in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you have to listen to your body. And even if you don't have none of us have great workouts every day. But even if you just went and did that workout, it's a commitment you kept to yourself. It's a habit that you maintained, and your mindset is still, it's still productive. They always say that, no workout is a bad workout. So you still moved your body at the end of the day. And yeah, you just have to listen to how your body is that day as well. So yeah, I completely agree with everything you said.
Yeah. And something that actually my husband and I say quite often, like, even if we're not in the mood to work out, we always tell ourselves after the workout, oh, I don't regret doing that workout. Like, obviously it was really
Exactly.
hard for us to even do the workout, but then once you've done the workout, you're like, yeah, I'm pretty like stoked that I actually did that. That was totally worth it.
And
So
sometimes
mhm.
that in itself is such a win, to know that you had no energy, you had no desire to go and work out, you had all these, like, a crazy day, but you still made it. That in itself feels so good and is a win.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and along those lines too, like, it can be pretty difficult to motivate yourself, basically in a vacuum. I think something that can also help when it comes to low motivation is finding other people, or maybe not even necessarily people, but other types of like media, for example, that you can surround yourself with that is going to make you inspired or make you feel reignited to go towards what you're going after. So for me, I like listening to podcasts or like YouTube videos of other competitors, because when I see them enjoying the process, living life, or they'll have like vlogs about their show day, and it just kind of reminds me how much I enjoy this whole process, and that this is all kind of we're all going through the same thing, and it's motivating for me to see that other people do it and other people are kind of sharing their experiences. So being able to listen to the stories of fellow competitors is really motivating to me. Sometimes having a gym buddy or a partner, it helps a lot if you are able to work out with your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, whatever you have there, or even like your best friend. You might be more likely or more inclined to actually do what you plan to do, even if you're not feeling it.
yeah, absolutely. If you can get someone like a partner, whenever I have a partner workout, it's always fun. Your partner's always pushing you. If that's like a friend or whoever, it's and you feel like you have to make it to the gym because you have someone that's waiting for you. So all these things will definitely help you.
Yeah. And another thing too, like, say for example, your friends aren't even that into whatever hobby or sport or interest that you're in. With the advent of technology now and social media, there's a lot of ways that you can find your tribe. Something that I use personally is Facebook groups. I don't know if you use that, but there are a lot of communities there, a lot of gym related communities, for example, that you can connect with. And it's nice because once you've kind of found your niche, you can find people to kind of help foster that interest of yours. Like if you want to learn more about your sport, like such as bodybuilding, there are groups there for you. Online, there's like, say, women specific types of groups where if you want a form check, rather than asking somebody at the gym, for example, you can like take a recording of yourself and like post it to these communities, and there are so many eager and willing people who would like love to help a fellow beginner out because they've been there before, and they just have so much passion for whatever it is that they do that they'd be willing to help you, and that might make you feel a little bit more secure in asking questions and not being afraid to learn. So there's a lot of different options for different people.
Yeah, there's a lot of resources out there right now, which is really, really good for everybody, whether that's, through YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I mean, all these resources are great to look into, just making sure that you're able to figure out which ones are appropriate to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the biggest thing about motivation too is really just your overall mindset. Like motivation can only get you so far, but it's the actual discipline and the habits that you build that get you to repeatedly do the things that you need to do in order to accomplish something. And that's something that we could talk about probably tirelessly, because there is a lot that comes to mindset that helps you make the decisions that you need in order to succeed.
Yeah, I think a lot of our sport is mindset for sure. So I think that's a great topic to talk about our in our next podcast for sure.
Yeah, and so I mean, at the end of the day, when it comes to motivation, of course, it's a very short-lived fuel in terms of how far it can take you. Really, what at the end of the day, people will have to end up relying mostly on discipline and the habits that they've built in order to be able to go that long distance. So if, we're making an analogy, like that's going to be like your high-end fuel that's going to last you the whole duration of that distance. And so, but in order to get to that point where you feel like you have all that discipline, or you feel like you've established your habits consistently to the point that you don't even really need to think about being motivated, that is something that will rely a lot of mindset work. And it sounds easy, but it's absolutely not. It's probably the hardest part of bodybuilding and the hardest part about life in general is having, a mindset that can think long term, a mindset that can, look past the struggles and the hardships of now and see the positives out of whatever it is that you're currently dealing with. But it's a huge topic to really conquer. So I think, with that, we'll probably save that conversation for our next episode.
Yeah, I think that's a great topic for next podcast. And yeah, a lot of this has to just do with building your habits. The more habits we build, the less we have to think about them, the more automated our life is with our good habits, and the less struggle it is to follow them. So I think that's a key point that we want to follow. And then in terms of mindset, I think we'll talk about that next episode. And I hope that everybody enjoyed our podcast today. And thanks for joining us. And till next time.
Yeah, I hope you guys tune in for our next episode. So until then, peace out.